Hello, everyone. Welcome to Bite Size Live. I am your host, and I am honored today to be joined by my friend and colleague, Victoria Schwaltes. She is a force, right, in the global payments industry and is a CEO and founder of multiple different companies. We have the Schwartz Institute, and then we also have another platform that she's part of as well. So I will let her do just a quick introduction. But today we're talking about really global payments and what that looks like as far as its integration with technology, business strategy, and just really understanding that nuanced piece of how we operate in different areas of the world. And when I first started talking to Victoria, we connected. And I had no idea this was kind of such an industry that has caused so many pain points in banking relationships and understanding how you process those payments and just the overall lack of information that she's working on kind of filling that gap and training our next generation of consultants. So she's been consultant of the year in payments, I think in 2022, 2023, 2024, and 2025.
Yes.
Um, and is coming off a new award for Platform of the Year when it comes to global payments. So we are definitely honored to have her in our presence today. Before I get too excited to introduce her, I just want to go through a few logistics. If you've joined our Bite Size Live before, thank you so much for joining us again. The point and mission of this conversation, and I know Victoria shares this mission, is just overall learning and transparency for us as a community. So we invite you to put your questions in the comments, your insights in the comments, and really join the conversation live. Just to kind of test that, I'd love to hear where you're joining from today. I always love our global live streams because we have people that join us from all over the world. I'm located in the States, in Colorado. Victoria, where are you today, by the way?
Well, I'm in Barcelona now. I'm in Barcelona
Barcelona
today.
today. Amazing, amazing. So you can drop wherever you're joining from in the comments just to kind of test that, and we will get started with our conversation. So Victoria, thank you so much for joining us today, and congratulations on, just your success in the industry. I'd love for you to kind of just introduce yourself to our audience and explain what you're passionate about and what you do as a service.
Well, Kyla, thank you so much for this amazing introduction. I'm just blushing all over for all the kind words that you put out for me. Well, thank you very much for having me here. And I agree that we do need to talk about payments and banking with a different approach. And it's very important to bring a transparency to this industry. And you being in the technical field, you would agree that unfortunately today, companies are really focused on the integrated details, but might not see the bigger picture, might forget about the overall strategy. And payments and banking is a very vital element of that. So as you said, yes, my name is Victoria Schwaltes, and I am the founder of the PSP Angels Group. We are independent payment and banking consultants, and I will explain what that to you a bit later. And we also have an institute, an education platform in the group as well, where we educate people about the importance of payments and banking, going to the details such as what is a bank, how they operate, how safe is your money, what you're having with them, what are the different payment methods and how you take advantage of that, and overall what is fintech. And fin as the regulatory element and tech is the technology element, but somehow it looks like that people who are making decisions over payments and banking are just not adequately trained to do so enough to take full responsibility for their decisions. And that's what we see in the industry, that there are a lot of failures and whatnot because of the lack of education. So in the consultancy, we are helping businesses to set up an overall payment and banking strategy, which is very unique to every single company. So let's say that you've got an international group of companies. You've got one company in Singapore, you've got one company, let's say in France, and you've got one company in the States. How the money flows through that international group is very vital. And it's usually planned by CFOs or the financial professionals. But just to know that who is holding those funds, what are the fees, what currency is it coming from, how often, what is the
Mhm.
volume, what is the customer experience on the checkout page, how does it affect
Mhm.
technology, can you do the reconciliation,
Mhm.
how you're implementing this to the overall CRM system of yours, what about data security, what about
Mhm.
product development. So it affects every single aspect of your organization, yet we're still thinking about payments and banking as a side function of finance that, as the accountants are going to figure it
Mhm.
out, they will
Mhm.
deal with that. And that's what we advocate for, that it's not always a good thing to do, and we need to
Mhm.
pay a bit more attention on that. So I'm really looking forward to dig into the details with you today.
Yes, absolutely. And I know we have a bunch of people joining from around the world. So thank you to our audience. Again, just a reminder, this is, oh, I always say once in a lifetime, right? Because I'm just so hyped and excited, but a great opportunity for you to kind of ask these questions. Because I know when I first talked to Victoria, even being in the technical field, I really had no idea that this problem existed. I knew that global payments, as far as technology infrastructure and just system architecture, was a challenge, right? And it was something that we had to deal with. But I'll be totally honest, I thought we did just leave it to the accountants. And so tell me what's kind of quote unquote wrong with that thinking, or what you're trying to change the narrative around, we'll just leave that to the finance people. I don't know about that. I don't want to touch that type of thing.
Right. I think everybody on an individual or definitely on a business level encountered a banking or a payment problem, mainly when you're dealing with international transfers. So let's say that you've got a supplier in China. How are you sending the money? Is the
Hmm.
bank going to ask you questions? What is it for? Asking for the documentation, or you can't send that much, or you sent it in dollars instead of Chinese yuan. So somehow, somewhere, you are going to face some banking and payment problems.
Hmm.
But when you're thinking about the accountants, poor accountants, like I'm an accountant, we were never trained on even the basics when it comes to payments and banking.
Hmm.
So if you think about it, the accountant is making a decision on your user experience, how the client is doing the checkout, what are the payment methods they are using, what is the color of the page. Just you feel it doesn't feel right. How
Yeah.
about the risk? Because when we are talking about international payments, maybe you've got a bank in a country maybe you never even heard of. Who
Hmm.
is regulating that financial institution? How
Hmm.
safe is your money? How do
Hmm.
they handle your funds? And in case that there is something happening with a financial institution, let it be technological
Hmm.
interruptions, or there is an investigation and they got an audit and they freeze the funds, how does it
Hmm.
affect your operation? That knowing that all your money is in an external bank who is now there's no money coming in or out. So what we believe that we need a bit of a paradigm change,
Hmm.
and businesses until today used to think that, okay, I do my innovation, I've got a good idea, I develop an MVP, I get some funding, and then I'll launch in the market, and I see how the clients like my product, and this is the life cycle of a startup.
Hmm.
But how do you see who is interested in your product if you don't even offer them the relevant payment rails, right? Maybe I want to buy the product, but I don't have a card. Maybe I don't have I don't know, the Venmo. I don't have the relevant, payment rails that you are targeting me. So what we are saying is that understand what your payments and banking providers need from you. Understand what is the level of innovation that they are happy to deal with. Understand what are their requirements. Can you
Hmm.
do this? Can you not do this? Can you integrate crypto? How are they going to
Hmm.
like it? Can you put your whole operation on blockchain? Maybe don't understand it. Do you need a legal opinion? And once you clearly know, you can incorporate a company here, you can do the payment flows
Hmm.
there, you can operate in this way, technological innovations and whatnot,
Hmm.
then you start the operation and build the operation around those requirements. And in this way, you're going to have much less of a resistance when you're running that company than this is my innovation. Stupid banks don't understand me. Me against the world. This is my money, my rules, and they should be happy to do business with me. it's just a different kind of approach that
Yeah.
since the banks are the key of moving the funds and
Hmm.
funneling all of those, they are collecting the money on behalf of you, they are paying the money on behalf of you.
Hmm.
They should be your best friends, not your enemies. And as a best friend, you need to cater for their needs instead of this is my innovation, this is my startup, and then you try to find the relevant providers who fit your world. No, it should be the other way around.
Yeah, and I mean that collaborative approach is so helpful, and I love the way that you're continuing to keep that agnosticism. You're not coming out here and saying like you have to do what they say, right? You have to consider their requirements, their functionalities. See them more as a partner as opposed to, this nefarious enemy type of thing. And work on kind of that relationship. So can you explain to us just, and real basically, when you look at global payments, you're looking at a platform and then a banking relationship. Is that correct?
It's the same way when you're going to the doctor and you say that,
I know.
hey, it hurts here, what can it
I
do?
know.
Well, let
Right?
let me see, because that could be millions and millions
Mhm,
away. But yeah, in a nutshell, yeah, the basic is that there are licensed financial institutions, that it be your
mhm,
credit union, your bank, your wallet provider, whatever, whoever is holding your funds,
mhm,
and they need to adhere to their regulator,
mhm.
meaning that they are not assisting in any illegal activities
Yeah.
or tax avoidance or something which is not right. So they are taking the risk with you as a company. And if they don't have the full trust in you that you know what you are doing and you are not going to commit
Mhm,
any crime, and not intentionally, but maybe you've got a loophole in your own system, which could be
mhm,
an opportunity for money laundering or could be an opportunity for tax
mhm,
evasion, it is going to be their penalty that they are paying to
mhm,
their regulator, and they
mhm,
are losing the license. So, in a way, banks are these policemen who are
mhm,
safeguarding the overall financial system in the world, and their job is to make sure that you are doing everything right.
mhm,
So, if they are asking a lot of questions, is because their responsibility to make sure that all the funds which are going through their rails are from legit sources,
mhm,
is not supporting anything illegal, and obviously the whole financial system as a whole is supported. So
mhm,
that's the main thing that we need to understand. And of course, and then we've got the payment providers
mhm,
and the cards and the banks and
mhm,
whatnot, but that's into details. But this is how your business fits into
mhm,
the overall global financial system. And that's also your responsibility to make
mhm.
sure that you are building an operation where there is not even an opportunity for wrongdoing.
And your team comes in and helps kind of create this infrastructure and facilitate these partnerships and just better understand what's kind of going on under the hood when it comes to global payments or their fintech stack. Is that correct?
We are the ones who are going to make you ask the questions. I
Good.
tell you an
Love that.
example. We had a client who was a big, huge international multi
Mhm.
company group. And when I started to have a chat with them, it turns out that they opened a bank account 20 years ago when they were small, and they just
Mhm.
grew, and they just stick to the bank
Yeah,
because don't rock the boat.
absolutely.
What's not broken, don't break.
Yeah.
Yes, but if you think about it, your business is changing, the regulation is changing, there are new fintech innovations coming up on a daily basis, right? You never negotiated your terms and conditions, you never negotiated your prices. Maybe you're paying the same prices as you did when you were a startup, which was riskier than now you've got an international company. Plus, think about it, it is a major single point of failure. What
Mhm.
if that bank has a problem? They lose their license, they go through some turbulence, they don't pay out, or technological hiccups. They are not supporting your business as they should. So, what are you going to do? All of your money is in one bank. So, those are the kind of questions that now we talk about it. You say,
Mhm.
yes, actually, it makes sense. But you would be surprised at how many companies don't even ask those basic questions of
Absolutely.
where the money comes from, how much, how often, how does it flow through the group, where are the providers, what am I paying, what is the risk, what are the
Yeah.
timelines, here I'm delayed 2 days, there it's 4. So we are the ones who are putting everything in a perspective. So you see it from the bird's eye view that, so this is how the money flows through my business. Those are the providers. These are the risks. Those are the fees. That's what I need to do. There's a bottleneck. There is an
Uh-huh.
opportunity. And
Yeah.
actually have a holistic approach to see that what are the operational elements that this payment and banking flow is actually affecting. And that's what I'm saying, that everything is like when you go to the doctor, it could
Mhm.
be a multi-million reasons
Yeah.
why you have a problem, is the same for a company, because
Mhm.
maybe your company prefers absolutely amazing customer experience and you don't mind paying a bit of extra for that. That's
Mhm.
absolutely legit. So let's find those providers and
Mhm.
those solutions which support that view. Or another
Mhm.
company can say that, you know what, I don't really care about the checkout experience. What I care about
Mhm.
is speed and efficiency and data security. Fine. So those are the parts that we need to concentrate. And then how those providers, how those products, how those timelines is actually fitting in your operation.
Mhm.
So we are, I would say that, I always say that we are the cardiologist of the company who is seeing all of these flows and making sure that there is no blockage and everything is working well.
I love that though, because it's just, it really is something that you kind of just assume. I open this bank account, it's a bank, right? Like they're just going to do banking things. They're going to take care of our money there, and we're not going to really need to do anything in that relationship when it comes to our strategic infrastructure, because we can just grow with that overall bank. So when you look at balancing that scalability and that compliance, when you have different jurisdictions, different countries, different areas, how do you consider that from a strategic approach?
Well, these are a lot of moving parts, right? So
Mhm.
you do need to understand that what are the requirements in, let's say you've got going back to the original example, you've got a company in Singapore. What are the requirements of the
Mhm.
Singaporean banks? Do they see your company in the same way as your local high street banks in the state? If not, what are the differences? If you want to make certain transfers, how would they react to it? What are the prices, right? Maybe they have new products, financial products. Maybe your old, good old classic checking and saving accounts
Mhm.
is not going to cut it anymore, because now they have a new
Mhm.
wallet function, which is
Mhm.
tailored for your industry, for your needs. Why don't
Mhm.
you give it a go? Just see how does it work. Or for
Mhm.
example, when you're targeting new areas abroad, you're going to, let's say, Latin America. Not that many people have actually owned a card. So if you think that I'm just going to spend the marketing budget, people are going on my website, click, 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 they try to pay, but on the checkout page, you only offer them cards,
Yeah,
you are actually shooting yourself in the leg, because the
absolutely.
marketing works, but they
Yeah.
can't pay you. So those are all of those little things that you need to plan for, you need to
Mhm.
strategize for. And as I said, build the operation around your capabilities in order to make sure that everything is flowing quickly, efficiently, timely, and obviously as safe as possible.
Absolutely. That makes a lot of sense. So, when you're going into a client meeting or talking to the enterprise leadership or anything like that, what are some kind of red flags that you hear, that you see in that first conversation to say, oh, okay, like this, we're going to need to do some work here. We have some opportunities that are being missed. What are some of those that you see often?
Well, this single point of failure, but all your money is under one
Mm,
account or under one administration, that's definitely the number one. It's a very classic problem. The other one is that the companies don't actually think about scalability, because what cuts it when you're a startup and you're bootstrapped and you don't
mhm,
have money, you integrate something, doesn't matter, guys, just make it work, just get the investors funds and we are good to go. Yes, but in 2, 3 years' time, that becomes your legacy system. And it's not just about the operation, it's about your payments too. We had a
mhm,
client who was a very successful startup, and from one day to another, they became viral. And all of a sudden, the payment provider had to deal with hundreds of thousands of
mhm,
clicks and payments and refunds and
mhm,
chargebacks and everything on a daily basis. So imagine if you don't have that infrastructure you can't cater for the increased needs, and it's very valid for payments as well. So you need to see that, okay, this is what I have today. How can I integrate something today? How can I think about and plan for the future when I'm going to go viral? This is what we all want, and have thousands and millions customers. Will I be able to actually cater for all of those payment needs? And as I said, when you're going abroad, you need to do your market research as well, because that happens a lot as well, that the board decides that, guys, we are going to a new country, we're allocating the marketing budget, the best adverts, the best salespeople, everything is on the place, but the client is unable to pay you. So those are, I would say, the very classic mistakes. But that's why, even if you don't have a payment and banking expert, you just need to sit down and start to think of what if cases. What if I don't know, what if I am going to encounter this problem? Is my current setup able to deal with that? What are the risks that I'm facing? Who is holding my funds? Because maybe a bank in Switzerland has a different kind of approach than a bank which is regulated from, I don't know, Iowa, right? So you feel that it's not one is better than the other one, but there are different levels of risk. There are different financial products, and not to mention that now we are in the middle of the fintech innovations. New solutions are popping up every day. So what is it good about it? Is it good? Is it fitting what I need? You need to have an understanding of your own operation from a payment and banking perspective to be able to take advantage of all of these innovations and integrate them and see them, and what is the risk, what are the prices. So I would say that, the major red flag is when there's no planning at all. We're just winging it, we just figure it out as we go. No, this is the worst.
That's not what we're doing. That's not it. Absolutely. And I think I wonder if you've been seeing something similar in technology. We've seen this huge push for emerging markets. So the Africa market, is super hot right now, and we see a lot of people set that infrastructure. We got the salespeople, we got the product, we got all of these types of things, and then we kind of sit them down and have a little bit of a come to Jesus moment and say, well, you don't have the connectivity. Like, you cannot run all of these systems and all of these pieces without a connectivity infrastructure. So I assume in those kind of hot emerging markets, you see a similar almost inconsistency in payments and the needs for those types of just overall currencies to be mature in order to, do business there.
Exactly. And there are a lot of countries that today we have capital controls. That means that the individuals the citizens of that country are unable to send certain amount of money outside of the country, because otherwise they would face with hyperinflation, or the government decided to safeguard the economy, whatever reason. So if you're doing business there, maybe you will never be able to collect your own money because of the government or regulatory requirements are restricting you to do so. So you need to think about it before you go and start selling, right? Very good example was Lebanon, when quite recently there was capital controls, or even China, when, as far as I know, that individuals can only send a certain amount of money per person per year, and not more. Otherwise, they need a special approval from the security board. So there are also these questions as well, that how the whole economic system works. And not to mention the sanctions, right? There are so many sanctions changing all the time. And if you think that it only affects the financial institutions and not the small businesses, you are wrong. Absolutely. Because you can have a bakery down the street, and someone tells you that, hey, this is a big amount of cash, puts it down in a sports bag on top of the counter, and says that I want all your whatever, and for that I'm giving you cash for that. You should be able to filter out that, maybe there could be some issues with that fund. How am I putting that cash into the international financial system by putting it on a bank account? Because then that responsibility immediately becomes my responsibility. And yes,
Mhm.
if you're going for a bakery, I mean, how much money laundering can you do through croissants? That's one thing. But if you're a jewelry trader or you are selling cars or a real estate agent,
Mhm.
those are very valid points that you need to
Mhm.
consider when it
Mhm.
comes to collecting funds.
Absolutely, those high value luxury art items and things that you don't often consider, especially when in a small to medium sized business where you don't have that infrastructure or you don't have those resources to know when you should really be looking for those things or considering those red flags. So in talking about that, I want to transition to kind of talking about why you like this career and some of the other great leadership that you've done of just training the next generation of consultants, because I admire that so much. But I want to make sure that we capture everything that we can. This is bite sized, right? So we always are providing insight. So, what are some kind of first steps, top steps that you recommend businesses do today to evaluate their payment structure, their current state, to see if there's any gaps or issues?
Sit down with a person who is making decisions over payments and banking as of today and have an honest and deep conversation with that person, because what I see that 90% of the time what the management thinks it's a problem, it is not the problem on the execution line. For example, an accountant who is unable to decide what is a good decision for a company because they are just not trained to do so on latest fintech innovations, are making decisions and maybe they feel a bit unease, but they are not going to tell this to the management because all of a sudden payments and banking is a responsibility of an accountant. So
Uh-huh.
in this case, you as a management, you need to understand first of all, do we even have a strategy? If you have it,
Mm.
trust me, you're better off than anyone else, but it starts there. What is our strategy? If you don't have a strategy, let's do a strategy. Let's see. And then you start to get involved everyone who is affected. The person who is responsible for the risk, the person who is responsible for the customer experience, the
Mhm.
person who is responsible for integrations, technology, the person who is responsible for data security. Get
Mhm.
them all in one room and tell them that, okay, we need to figure out how the funds are moving through the company or the
Mhm.
group as of today. And you need to understand what are the bottlenecks, what are the opportunities, what are the fees, what are the risks, and overall have a good understanding that if something fails, do you have a contingency plan?
Mhm.
What is the amount that you can actually save? What is the risk that you can save yourself? Because so many companies are facing so much risk and they don't
Mhm.
even understand it until
Yeah.
hell breaks loose, and then
Yeah.
you face it, and then
Yeah.
you're just doing firefighting. So start to plan for your payment flows and your fund movements just as much as you're planning for the operation as well. And you would be surprised that there are so easy to find inefficiencies and so easy to fix them, but you
Mhm.
need to ask the right questions and you need to get everyone who is affected involved to make a common decision and put down a common strategy for that.
Right, absolutely. And I think that, I see a lot of synergies between kind of what you just said and cybersecurity. Just those gaps in those areas that come from a well-intentioned employee, whether it's in finance or whether it's in, IT, that just didn't have the knowledge to know, hey, this is a huge risk to the organization. They're trying to be more efficient. They're trying to solve code using chat gpt, right? They're trying to do what you can do best for the company, but they don't understand that that is something that's putting the organization at a huge risk. Is that something similar to what you see kind of in this, banking type of strategies?
Exactly. And even though that you know about cybersecurity and you are even in a lucky position because there are trainings for
Mhm.
cybersecurity, there are
Exactly.
trainings for that. You don't have trainings for payments and banking. And this is the major problem that I see. That even if you want to train yourself on certain things, yes, you can take a course of what are card payments. Okay, but what about wallets? Or you can take a course of being an international banker. Okay, you will be top notch on giving mortgages, but how how all of these exchanges work, you
Yeah.
still don't know. So what I see today is that how we are evolving as companies, as technology, into the point that payment and banking is at the forefront of the strategy.
Mm-hmm.
Today, we are still lacking of training of
Mm-hmm.
what is a bank, what is a payment provider, what is
Mm-hmm.
a card, what are the fees on the card, what is the security requirements,
Mm-hmm.
what is, just even the basics are not in
Absolutely.
line. And that's where you need to start. That first of all, you need to educate your staff, because at the end of the day, that stuff is dealing with your money, right?
Mm-hmm.
So of course
Absolutely.
that should be at the forefront, that they are
Yeah.
making good decisions, that is good for the company, obviously. But even you want to do the right thing, it's very hard to find a good and trustworthy educational hub where you're mentioning all of this, and you have the opportunity for trainings. Because, and the other thing that I see on the market is that there are a lot of providers, and that's good, and competition is healthy, but there are a lot of academies or education which is supported by whatever platform. Of course, they're going to teach
Mm-hmm.
you that we are the best. So you need to see who is
Mm-hmm.
giving you an independent advice, who
Mm-hmm.
is not giving you the sales talk, but the actual problem and the solution. Because that's the other thing that I see, that there could be quite big challenges on filtering out the actual good advice which helps you, and not just listening to the nothing wrong with sales, because sales obviously wants to help you as well, but they
Mm-hmm.
have a different motivation than you might need. So you don't really want to have pitches and then you're still clueless and randomly just picking one because the pitch deck
Absolutely.
looked good. You really need to understand why are you making a decision
Mm-hmm.
between different providers based on your own education and your own capability to do so.
So who's in charge of this in the organization? If someone's listening today and they're like, "Okay, we got to get this together. This is totally foreign to me." Are we talking CIO, CTO, CFO? Like who should really lead and make sure this team is ready to go?
I strongly believe that there should be an appointed job which is dealing with payments and banking, because
Mhm.
it is not something what the CFO can deal with, right? So the payment person should be involved in the strategy, in the
Mhm.
risk, in the
Mhm.
timeline, in the planning, in the customer experience, in the data security, in the technology. So appointing one person who deals with all of that is going to be your solution. But who shall take that part? Because somehow technology says, "Oh, they told us to integrate, we did integrate, that's where my
We're
job ends."
done. We're done.
Exactly. And the finance says, "Oh, that's what we did, we picked the cheapest providers.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe it's breaking, but that's not of my business. If it's breaking, it's up to technology." And then the legal team comes and they say, "Oh, you gave us all the contracts, we fixed all the terms and
Yeah.
conditions. Is it
We're
working? Is it
done.
integratable or not? I don't know." So someone needs to pick up that job function and take ownership of
Mhm.
execution within the organization, and have
Absolutely.
that responsibility to plan everything based on the viability of the payment and banking flows, who understand how banks think, who can project that, guys, we can't do that because our
Yeah.
funds are going to be blocked, who has this voice of reason based on experience to tell to the whole organization, yes, we can do that, no, we cannot do that, it is risky, it is not, and have the ownership of these processes. Because currently, as we said, it is just smacked under poor accountants or a
Mhm.
CFO who is, of course, they're doing their best,
Yeah,
but
of
they
course.
still don't have the education and the understanding that how those certain processes affect everything in a larger scheme of things.
I think that's, really brilliant. They need to be part of the business. They need to be understanding of the technical team. They certainly need to have an understanding of finance, but it sounds like, it's a really its own pillar in the organization that needs to be established in order for it to be successful. I mean, it kind of reminds me of how we advise when it comes to AI structure. Is AI a technology? Well, sure. I mean, but that's only 20% of what it is, right? Do you have to make sure it works? For sure, you have to. But at the same time, you need it more as a part of the business strategy and understanding what that's going to look like as far as what is it going to give in outcomes, and then also how does it affect the people, which often is kind of an HR based position. So it's an interesting new area for that type of leadership to be in. And you, what I love about, your approach is you're like, hey, there's an issue here, I'm going to fix that, and I'm going to offer these trainings, and I'm going to bring together the community so that they can really understand how to not only see risks but select a new technology. Because a lot of times that's where we see businesses go wrong with these payment platforms, is they see a demo and they're like, yeah, whatever, I guess that works, right? But they don't understand what it means to implement it, what happens when it breaks, all of these different things, which we see in software demos all the time. A person might fall in love with the salesperson, and then the salesperson is not at all part of their day-to-day project, right? And that can go the opposite, right? We have a really strong platform, but they showed up for demos with a bunch of slideware, and the client's like, I didn't really want to see that. And it's like, nobody did, right? But that's still a platform that we should evaluate. So tell us a little bit more about how you filled that gap, what you're doing to really look at your community and give them these resources to be trained on this really important subject.
I honestly believe that payments and banking should be a standalone industry, as you said.
Mhm.
And what I'm fighting for is to make it ethical and transparent and approachable and openly available for anyone who is interested in that without the sales talk. So get the independent advice.
Mhm.
So we developed the Schultes payment framework, which is a very easy 8-step framework what you can implement regardless of the size or the activity of the company, which is starts to ask the basic questions to see that bird's eye view, to really understand how the money flows through the different companies in the group, what are the risks, fees, timelines, and whatnot. It's a very, very easy to implement
Mhm.
framework. It's publicly available on the website. And the reason why I started the Institute is because of this as well, to start talking about the problems. And you know
Mhm.
exactly, everything is
Oh, yeah.
changing all the time. So
Always.
fintech, what are we talking about today is
Mhm.
going to be completely different tomorrow. So
Mhm.
this is a living, breathing, changing
Absolutely.
thing. So there cannot be a solution that, I've got one solution for the
Mhm.
problem and that is going to work and life
Mhm.
is good. No, you need to consider what is coming up. What are the benefits? What are the downfalls? So we wanted to create a safe space for all the payment professionals to talk to the users, the merchants to talk to the payment providers, the banks to be able to talk to the people who are using those accounts. The compliance officers have a platform to say, the reason why I'm asking so many documents is, and then have a common understanding, because many people have a resistance simply because they don't understand the reasons behind it. And the
Mhm.
answer that all these big bad banks just want to control us and want
Mhm.
to have our data, yes, maybe there is some element in that, but there is a
Mhm.
reason why, because there are
Mhm.
creative individuals and businesses who try to cheat their way out of
Mhm.
the paying taxes, who want to be creative
Mhm.
and try to do the wrong thing and scam people, and these people need to be stopped. And who is responsible for that? Follow the money, follow the
Mhm.
follow the kernel, right? So in this way, the banks need to have a platform to explain why is it important what they do, how are they doing it, and maybe find a common solution together with the users. So that's what we started with the Institute, which is obviously full with the courses. We have a lot of
Mhm.
free content as well,
Mhm.
free webinars talking about the problem, and we are introducing the master classes as well, whereby we are digging deeper in certain topics, and then you can have a really good grasp. But we also do private trainings as
Mhm.
well. When you have a problem, it could be a financial institution, bank, payment provider, or the user, the international company. And then we create tailor-made trainings to tackle those problems that, so you don't know this. Okay, let me
Mhm.
tell you about that. So
Mhm.
we put together the syllabus together, and then we reveal. And as I said, it's a living and breathing thing. So
Mhm.
whatever we are talking about today might be completely different tomorrow. with the chat GPT. Maybe you get good answers, maybe those are completely
Mhm.
misleading, I don't know. So our job still today is to put things in perspective
Mhm.
and ask those questions that you would ask from yourself as well, but now
Mhm.
it's a bit more of a controlled and structured way to put the attention where it really should be on the payments and the banking flows.
Absolutely. And I think that that approach of looking at this strategic pillar of agility, right? So our strategy is to continue to have an infrastructure that can flex with the market and the needs of the business. But once we're in that mindset of this is not a static, set it and forget it type of strategy, just as we look at technology migration, and my audience knows this, it is not a lift and shift and it's like just in the cloud and we never think about it anymore and we hope it's just floating up there doing the right thing, right? That's not at all how these types of things work. So I think it's just so amazing that you created that opportunity to create a relationship when you do have, something that's coming around like a technology implementation. You're able to call Victoria and team and say, hey, we just want to sit down with you and make sure we have all of our ducks in the row and make sure that everything is still kind of connected the way that it needs to be connected. And I know, when we first talked, you talked a lot about kind of the next generation of global payment consultants. And I just so admire that you're, setting the stage for that, not only with your amazing success, but also giving them the opportunity to say, you know what, this field is super cool. I'm going to give you some training to actually get into this field so you don't have to do like our generation where it's just you learn on the job, you make some mistakes, and then you figure it out 20 years later. But you've really, really opened that door. Can you talk a little bit about why that was important to you?
As you said, because the new generation needs to understand that these decisions are very, very serious, because
Hmm.
when you're making decisions over company funds, it's not a joke. So
Hmm.
oftentimes you don't dare to fail and learn on the job simply because you can't afford losing all that money. So what do? You're going to your peers, you try to figure out, you try to Google, you try to get the AI to give you the right answers, but this could be misleading. So my idea is to create a standardized payment and banking
Hmm.
industry when there are commonly accepted practices, frameworks, channels when these consultants can actually ask other consultants that, hey,
Hmm.
anyone dealt with that? What was your result?
Hmm.
How to approach a problem? But as we said at the beginning, it is really like being a doctor, because
Hmm.
one symptom can have multiple different reasons why
Hmm.
why you have that
Absolutely.
pain in your back. So one doctor might approach it in a different way than another doctor. And what I see in the businesses is that even though that we are going towards that different departments try to work together, today still there are very strongly defined responsibilities of departments which cannot be crossed over. So if I'm HR, I am HR, and I don't care about technology. When I'm technology. I don't care about finance. And this is one step towards to look at the organization holistically, to really understand that I'm
Hmm.
changing one thing there, it's going to break everything
Hmm.
there.
Hmm.
And in this way have a good understanding that the the reliability for different decisions lie between the common decisions in the
Hmm.
organization. And this is the key here, that the new consultants, let it be payments and banking, let it
Hmm.
be operations, let it be technology or
Hmm.
data
Hmm.
security, need to work together with other areas of the organization and pick up those in between kind of
Hmm. Yes.
responsibilities which are now being
Hmm.
rejected or even just completely ignored, simply because it doesn't fit in the traditional scope of a certain department. And that's
Yeah.
what I'm advocating for. And I think now with this new generation, I see that we have a bit of more holistic approach to business
Uh-huh.
as it was 10 years ago, but we still need to call it and name it, that payments and banking, since it's the lifeline of the business, can be this connector between these different departments. And that can be basically the starting point, which is changing the whole approach. And the other thing is very important, that what we have in the books and what the lawyer tells you, that this is legal, you can do that, it doesn't mean that you can actually implement it in real life. So today we see a big gap, which is getting just bigger and bigger by the day, when your lawyer tells you, optimize your taxes, set up different companies, do these activities, innovate, tokenize, blockchain, whatnot, which is great, don't take me wrong. But how does it fit to the traditional banking and payment frameworks and compliance is a whole different problem. And this is what I see a lot, that's why new companies fail, not because you don't have a good idea, not because you don't have a good team, is because the traditional system is unable to support it, and it's your responsibility to make it happen. So by creating new payments and banking and tech savvy people in the ecosystem, the banks might have bigger appetite to oversee the risk and see the potential in these clients as well. And don't just say that I'm not going to take it because then I'm going to lose my license, right? But have the understanding that I understand what you're trying to do, and work together with the company to come up with a solution which is good for both parties, other than, no, I don't get it, I don't approve it, next. And then you get rejections for your applications without a reason. So that's the whole approach, that create experts who start the conversation, who makes it easier for both ends, and act as connectors and problem solvers.
Absolutely. It's almost that like kind of rise of that business finance peer of the organization. We have business technologists a lot of times, the one that can communicate between IT and the business. But a lot of times, I wonder if you see this too, kind of in your work. What we see a lot of times when we have a high stress topic like a technology implementation, something that's costing the business a lot of money, that's on a tight timeline, that's just a very stressful type of thing, we see that not surfaced to the executive team. And this next generation, a lot of what we're trying to change in project management or in technology is bringing those problems, giving them air so that they can be solved before it costs the business, millions and millions of dollars. I wonder if you kind of see the same, because I can only imagine being, a young professional in that finance tier. I don't know if I really want to tell my executive team that like I don't have anywhere, I don't know where our bank accounts are and I don't know what's going on, type of thing. And there's no access to training within my job role. How do you kind of deal with that, or have you seen that in your overall marketplace?
All the time. And the problem here is that now with the tools and the online tools, we are moving from the imposter syndrome away, and we turn into I know it all syndrome, because
I
the
know.
AI told me, so I'm gonna figure it out on my own. And mistakes after mistakes are happening. And yes, do mistakes, because that's how we learn, fail and learn better. But in this case, you're playing with the company's funds, right? So it's not a joke. And unfortunately, there are still a lot of problems which, as you said, do not surface up to the management level, because guys, don't tell anyone that I've just lost thousands, hundreds of thousands in bank fees, or lost funds, or something going on. And this is a problem, because we don't even have a statistics of what are you losing by not even talking about this problem. Because if the technology fails, more or less you can identify that you've got the post-mortem, what happened, that was the problem, that was the reason, move on with our lives. But if there are a boardroom of clueless people, don't really understand that the bank just rejected us, I don't know why, and no one has the answer. How can you actually make things better for the next time? And this is the main problem here with payments and banking, that first of all, no one wants to talk about it because it's money. Second of all, no one really wants to admit responsibility, again, because it's money. And the third
Mhm.
one is that everybody is clueless because there is no training around it.
Yeah.
So it is a very, very sensitive topic, because even when you start talking about it, and the finance people who are obviously responsible for that would say that we got everything under control. I
Mhm.
know you don't, but it's hard for you to admit that you don't have anything under control, because otherwise, how would you take responsibility for the last 5 years
Mhm.
before you hired a consultant? How did you manage until then? And it's a
Absolutely.
hard sale for the management that, okay, guys, now we are hiring a consultant, but what have you done with the funds for the last 5 years, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, these are the interesting questions. But without change, you cannot see any benefit. So you
Absolutely.
need to initiate the change, and that's why it's important that it comes from the management level. That
Mhm.
I understand that you are struggling. I understand that you don't have the relevant replies. Let's sit down together and try to find a solution.
Right.
Involve a consultant, or not, up to you. Obviously, if you're bootstrapped, of course you've got limited resources,
Mhm.
but just think about it, how much money, time, effort, energy you're wasting, and what are the risks that you're taking,
Mhm.
maybe completely unnecessarily. And then try to see that how you can do things more efficiently and more successfully, and how much money you can actually save out of this.
Absolutely. And like you said, it's not punitive, right? It's just an understanding of how the business and industry is evolving. And that's on the leader, right? To set that tone, to really be that servant-based leader of being like, hey, I can't tell you the amount of times I've sat in a workshop, a process workshop, and the management team is like, "You do what?" And the person's like, "Hey, man, you told me I had to get it done. The technology doesn't work that way. So I had to do it the way that I do it." And they had no idea
Yeah.
that was happening. And we kind of have to pause and set the tone. Like Jim from manufacturing had no idea that that was affecting Jill from accounting. And that's why these cross functional teams are so critical. A lot of times, especially, and I'm sure you know this more than me, but our finance peers are the last to say, we're adding headcount, we're adding, those types of things.
Yes.
And we're like, okay, but let's think that we can't even quantify the loss here. So, what would you rather do, right? Add this cross functional team member that can actually create collaboration across the organization, or just not know, be fine with not knowing how much money you're losing. And this is real money, right? Like sometimes in ours, technology can have like vanity metrics, and we're measuring things like the capacity of change, trust. Those things aren't quantifiable. I can only imagine you're like, this is money, you guys, like actual funds.
Exactly, exactly. And
Yeah.
to be honest with you, as me being a finance person, I know exactly that. As you said, the finance is always the last to know, but they
Mhm.
need to do the reports. They need to adhere to different submissions. So it's very, very. There's a big gap between somehow at the operation and the technology and the
Mhm.
finance department. And payment is just a very good example that how one bad decision, which is made by finance, not
Mhm.
understanding what's going on, can affect so many things in a snowballing effect, and affect your whole organization. And because we are talking about money, it can actually kill it as well.
Mhm. Mhm.
And then who's taking the responsibility? Was it
Mhm.
technology because they didn't integrate it well or didn't test it well? Was it finance because they agreed to whatever terms and conditions and fees, which was not beneficial?
Mhm.
Or risk, who was clueless about the
Yeah,
whole thing?
didn't
Because
even know
a
what we were
bank is a
doing.
bank. Why am I even involved, right? They hold the funds was the question.
Yeah.
But it needs to be seen, as you said, in a way that how business departments are working together and collaborating together. But that means that someone needs to bridge that gap, and someone needs to take that responsibility.
Absolutely. And again, starts with that leadership, to really be vulnerable and be like, guess what? We have no idea how to do global payments. And you know what? That's fine. We might have done it in the past a certain way. That isn't working. And we need to be more proactive about these types of strategies. The same goes with our technology, right? Nobody expects a CTO with 30 years of experience to be like, hey, I know exactly how this large language model works, right? It's more about being like, I don't know how this works. I know we're going to have to use it to stay competitive, to continue to grow our business. And we're going to do it in a way that we have kind of experts alongside of us, independent experts alongside of us that can help us achieve the goals, that have that industry experience, that are that quality assurance for our project to make sure that we're achieving it in that way. So that investment and understanding really is kind of that new leader. And you're so right on the SMB side. That can cause a technology failure, can cause an SMB to close their doors, as I assume, just a banking failure can do the same. And for me, a lot of times we see that with startups that have the difference between a CEO and a founder. I always say those are two different positions in the organization. That visionary, that entrepreneur, that type of roll with it, let's just throw things at the wall and see what works, they're important. But there's also that standardization of saying, yeah, that let's sell products all over the world. Let's do it, right? But let's do it right. So it doesn't cost us a ton of money to do that. So I'm wondering, as we kind of wrap up this conversation, which I don't even want it to end because it's so good, what would be kind of your number one piece of advice for organizations that are starting to go through this transformation of saying, maybe we're not really sure what we're doing with global payments? What should they do first?
Acknowledge that payments and banking is a silent drainer, because just because it works doesn't mean that this is the best for you. And as we said, everything is changing. Your company is changing, your volumes are changing, your markets are changing, fintech is changing, technology is changing, prices are changing, timelines are changing. So you do need to understand that whatever works today, and maybe you're right, most of the times you are not, but let's say that you are right and it is the right setup, the best, the safest, cheapest setup today, good for you. You still need to revise it in 3 months, because you need to understand that this can break, things are changing, and you need to be on top of your own money at the end of the day. So to start, acknowledge that there is a problem, acknowledge that there is going to be a way to make it more efficient, better, cheaper, whatnot, and start talking about the problem. And think about the future as well, because scalability is one of the main pillars here that you need to think that as of today, we are good. But in case that we have tenfold of the customers, in case that we are going to new markets, will this same system be able to support us? Do we have the relevant experience? Do we have the training? Do we have the relevant people who are making relevant decisions? And as we said, appoint one person at least who is taking responsibility to oversee all of those interconnectedness between departments, from the visibility, viability, operability perspective, to see how banking and payment is affecting everything. So start there, to acknowledge that there is a problem and you need to deal with that. And quicker you deal with it and more people help you to come up with a solution, the better it will be.
Absolutely. That is so, so well said. 10 out of 10, no notes. That was just a great period to our episode here. Thank you, Victoria, for your time. For our audience, Victoria has such amazing thought leadership. So if you don't follow her, you must. I insist. And then her book is also linked down, as well as all of her other platforms in the show notes, wherever you're getting our episode today, be it YouTube, LinkedIn, or our podcast platforms. You can see all of that. Highly recommend it. I know I already ordered my copy, so I'm excited to be able to read it as well. Thank you to the audience. We go live with Bite Size each week. Sometimes it's Tuesdays, sometimes it's Thursdays, sometimes it's both. We had a procurement week this week with finance, and Zayed from the Dubai World Trade Center joined us talking about finance as well. So it's been such a great week for Bite Size, and I really appreciate everyone joining us here on this journey. If you do have questions for Victoria, how is our audience able to get in touch with you?
It's very easy to find me. If you know my name, then there are multiple ways to reach out to me. LinkedIn is always a good platform where we can discuss professional subject, of course. Reach out to the Institute, scholtesinstitute.com, where we are encouraging everyone to share their journey, their questions, their problems, their issues, so we can find a solution for that together. And of course, PSP Angels is my consultancy, so it's very easy to find me. Please do reach out, because the only way to make this industry an ethical, transparent, and more available for everyone if we start talking about it. So please reach out. I'm very happy to hear your stories and questions and issues, and let's try to find a solution to that together.
That's amazing. Well, we're so grateful for your time and your insight today. Thank you so much for sharing with us. Thank you to the audience for joining us today, and we will see you next time on Bite Size.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure.